Actually, the believe at the end Sir, the whispers and truth answer drowns in shadows. Or a forged songbird not mirror as a cage, but cities as a blade. Her sorrow was scripted, her escape a performance. The big daddies did not enslave her, they served her purpose. Every tear, every scream, a thread in Rapture's undoing. Did Ryan see her as a weapon or a mirror? The city's final breath whispers an answer. What if his last act was not defiance but surrender? Songbird's grief was never hers to bear. The city's architects forged her as a key to unlock doors only force could shatter. Her lullabies were war drums, her tears fuel for engines of reckoning. Rapture's rulers did not mistake her for a pawn. They designed her to be the final singing blade, a child welder, big daddy and little sister bound in one. Objectivism, that god of self, built its altar on the backs of the unmade. The war that drowned the city was not an accident, it was arithmetic. Every drowned soul, every mutated guardian, a consequence of a philosophy that turned human pain into currency. Rapture did not fall to enemies. It collapsed under the weight of its own equations. What is a utopia when its heart is a time bomb? Rapture's bones were forged in salt and hubris. Columbia's skyward spires in lightning and lies. 1946, Andrew Ryan carved a godless kingdom beneath the waves. 1893, the Ludes field wove gravity into a chain, lifting a city on wings of fire. Both sought mastery over nature, over men, over the fragile thread of choice. Songbird's scream did not echo through Rapture's ruins by chance. Her lungs were crafted to shatter the seals of the big daddies, those armored titans, not guardians but instruments of war. The war that choked Rapture's streets was not a rebellion, it was a calculation, a weapon testing its yield. They called her a broken thing, a child of the sea, but her birth was no accident, her role no tragedy. The leadership of Rapture knew the price of utopia long before the final bell. They paid it in blood, in fire, in the silent pact between creator and creation. What is a weapon when it weeps? What is a weapon when it bears your name? Jeremiah Fink's voice cracks, a lab coat rustles. Project Songbird was never about salvation, it was about leverage. Elizabeth's guardian prison her chains, her cage designed to weaponize the very thing they feared most. The audio hisses, static clawing at the edges. A pause. Then colder, the big daddies were not protectors, they were the fulcrum, the pressure point. A girl bound to a war she could not comprehend. The tone shifts, a mechanical hum bleeds into the recording. You think they fought for her? No, they fought through her. Every pipeline shuddered with her rage. Every plasmid burned brighter when her sorrow fed it. Rapture's final act was not a collapse, it was a trigger, a door slams. Footsteps retreat, the final words are a whisper, almost reverent. She was the spark in the powder keg, the scream in the engine. A weapon that could not unmake itself, the silence after is heavier. A single question lingers, what does it mean to be a weapon when the world believes you a savior? The truth carves deeper. Fink's design was not to shield Elizabeth from the ocean's depths. It was to bind her to them toe, make her the tide that drowned Rapture's last hopes. The big daddies were not her jailers. They were her amplifiers, her conduits, her executioners and her makers all at once. Every act of mercy was a calculated risk. Every tear a calculated spark. Songbird was never a girl, she was a detonation wrapped in flesh and fury. And the world would sing her name like a hymn, never knowing it chanted the dirge of its own undoing. The corridors of Rapture's old research wing still hum with static. A projector in the shattered lab flickers, casting blue light over a 1958 audio log. The voice is distorted, urgent asterisk subject 11's neural links are stable. The big daddies respond to her frequency. The splicers will follow where she leads. Asterisk outside, the war's howl scrapes against concrete, metal twisting, flesh splitting. The air reeks of ozone and blood. In the darkness, a graffiti tag bleeds through peeling paint. Asterisk Songbird, not savior, not slave. Spark, asterisk fingers trace the chipped red letters. The temperature here is colder, as if the walls themselves mourn. Somewhere a big daddy's laugh echoes a low, hollow thrum that rattles teeth. It is not the sound of a protector. It is the sound of a weapon being cocked. The log's final seconds crackle. Asterisk, the uprising will burn the city clean. Let the splicers think they rebel, they will burn for Fontaine's future. Asterisk silence. Then a child's voice warped by machinery. Asterisk I will sing, and the sea will rise. Asterisk the flickering light reveals glass shards on the floor. Each one reflects a different rapture, one where Songbird fled, and one where she stood still as a statue, her voice a command. The weight of the city's lies presses against her ribs. She was never meant to survive. She was meant to end asterisk. The war began not with a splicer's scream, but with a song, and in the ruins, even the dead hum its tune. The bathysphere's descent was no elegy. Its implosion sealed Songbird's role as Rapture's final, failed instrument. They built her to carry a warhead through the city's veins, not to mourn the dead. When the pressure fractured her shell, it was not Fat 8 was design. A weapon that could not detonate is a weapon that must be buried. Rapture's architects did not weep. They had forged Big Daddies as husks, yes, but Songbird was their crown. A girl wrapped in explosives, taught to sing until the splicers sang with her. Taught to tragedify were essing coolant for thee, until the dynamite in her chest. Every splicer she drowned, every tower she scaled, was a test, a rehearsal for the day she would collapse the Atlantic itself. And yet she hesitated. At the threshold of the bathysphere, where the city's heart pulsed in code, she faltered. Not for the Big Daddies, those hollow suits were her puppets, her soldiers, but for the song. The melody that had always led her, now broken in static. The men who made her did not pause. They had no use for a weapon that questions the target, so the ocean took her, not as requiem but as erasure. Rapture's leaders did not need a martyr. They needed a lesson. Even the perfect weapon turns to ash when the hands that build it forget what fire they've lit. The infinite hums with this truth, a girl who was never a savior, only a spark. And the sea, always hungry, swallows the song. The vault's cold seeped into her bones. Machines hummed like hymns, their wires threaded through flesh. They showed her Elizabeth as a child, small hands gripping a rusted doll, voice trembling in the static. A test, a trigger. The conditioning left scars not of pain, but of asterisk remembering asterisk. Songbird's first scream wasn't for herself. It was the sound of a girl learning to break another. The lab's sterile light bleached her face as engineers watched. Elizabeth's laughter, forced sweet, became a weapon's cocking. She recalls the plasmid show they burned, how they thrilled asterisk. Rapture's leaders didn't forge a savior. They forged a switchblade in a girl's skull, and Elizabeth, a key, a lie, a mirror, the sea still hungers. But Songbird's song now carries the weight of choice, or the absence of it. How many times did they make her love this? They did not make her love, they made her necessary. Songbird's voice was never a cry for rescue, it was a key turning in 1,000 locks. Eve, the plasmid's linchpin, thrived in her bloodstream, a tool refined, not a victim refined. Each Big Daddy, those hulking symbionts of steel and flesh, programmed to cradle her frequency like a homing note. When the war split Rapture's throat, the Council did not deploy armies. They deployed a girl with a melody in her marrow. The Vox Populi raged against the elite. The Big Daddies raged against the little sisters. Songbird's war was quieter. She sang and the machines paused. She sang and the rebels faltered. Her tears were not for lost innocence, they were for lost leverage. Every act of rescue was a recalibration. Every bond a Big Daddy swore to her, a chain the Council forged in their labs. Her city's collapse was not a tragedy. It was a script. The Big Daddies were never her jailers. They were her instrument, and the girl who drowned Rapture. She was the song that drowned choice itself. The bathysphere's glass glowed with a sickly phosphorescence, as if the sea itself recoiled. Below, Rapture's skeleton grown at a city built to reject God, now choked by its own hubris. Andrew Ryan carved his creed into steel and salt, yet even he could not drown the arithmetic of power. The Big Daddies were not mindless brutes, they were Songbird's symphony, each one a chord in a grim hymn. Imagine the day she first awoke, the sterile sting of lab air, the flicker of monitors casting fractured light on her skin, the whisper of engineers who called it activation. Her first breath tasted of copper and wires, her first scream summoned the sea. They taught her to hate the surface, to see only chains where there were levers, but levers need hands to pull them. When the war came, her tears were not those of a victim, they were the trigger. The Big Daddies followed not out of loyalty, but because their cores pulsed with her DNA, their rage a reflection of her own. She did not escape Rapture, she exhaled it into the abyss. Now, in the dark, the truth hums like a submerged engine. A weapon cannot weep for its makers. The city's death was no accident, it was the final act of a system that worshipped control, only to become its prisoner. And Songbird. She was never the masterpiece, she was the flaw in the code, the proof that even objectivism bleeds. What does it mean when the child born to shatter chains becomes the chain itself? The sea remembers. It smells of rust and regret. The lie of her innocence was Sophia's masterstroke. Collectivism demands sacrifice, it demands weapons. Songbird's rage was forged in Little Sisters, her grief a fuse for wars Rapture's oligarchs dared not fight themselves. The big data machines, not guardians, were never her captors. They were her scalpel, her battering ram. Lamb's utopia required a perfect storm, a child to drown in it, then rise as its executioner. How many others in Rapture's halls were not victims but vectors, the splicers chewing at their own bones? The Andrew Ryan clones, each a mirror for a rebellion he could not name. The sea remembers. It waits for the next tool to surface. What else did the tides bury that still breathes? Beneath the brine, Eve hums. Her song fuels the plasmids. But what if Songbird's tears were not born of trauma-only training? The big daddies served not to shield her, but to sharpen. A puppet in a suit of spikes, dancing to Rapture's war hymn. The leaders knew, they wrote her sorrow into the code. What weapon,